one of the guys that works with us got a text from a Division I coach, and he was saying he was at a game and he was just making some comments and conversations about the parents that he was next to in the stands. So I don't know if this for you, I know a lot of coaches like to watch along the glass. Not everybody, but a lot of them like to be in the rink. Like they like to be involved with the crowd and at the glass and hearing the game and all this stuff. I know we watched a couple games with some OHL scouts they like that. They want to be right up against it and whatever. And so there's a lot of times when you're playing at these like higher end showcases with better teams and whatever, where these people are watching, they're in the crowd, right? Like the scouts are in the crowd, the coaches are in the crowd of these schools or whatever. And so this guy was at one of the games and he was saying that a couple of the parents that he was next to were just absurd. Like that was the term. He's like, they are absurd. And why? And he's like, well, like they're yelling and screaming and swearing and just making asses of themselves basically in the stands. And I'm thinking like, we've talked about this kind of stuff a little bit before, but like it was just a reminder kind of to revisit it of like, I don't know if a lot of times parents are paying attention to their behavior or they just think that it doesn't matter and nobody's around, but like how that can impact what the thoughts are or the impression that you're leaving with schools, with scouts, with coaches, and what that can even do to your kid. Right. So it's like, if you could have the best kid ever. And if mom's a lunatic in the stands and the coach is like, walks out of that game, all he could think about was this lady screaming next to me the whole time I was trying to watch the game. What does that do to your team? What does that do to the kids that are on the team, and how that actually could have a legitimate impact in whether or not that coach wants to come watch another game? You know what I mean? So I guess just general thoughts in that realm to start, and then we'll go from there.
Your first question with that is like, what are people unaware? Do they not care or whatever? Like, what would make a parent go like that off the charts?
More
behavior,
or less,
right?
Yeah, more or less.
So
right?
one of the like, I'm not trying to be funny here. One of the questions is how many beers did you have that day?
Yeah,
because that's a tournament, right?
Yeah,
Like a lot of
fair
times
enough.
you get a 2, 3, 4 beers in there, and you're having a good time, or you're talking and
Yeah, it was 9:45 a.m.
okay,
but
well, so maybe 3.
yeah, maybe he's at 8. Yeah, maybe he's at 8.
Yeah. So, but that is one question. But other than that, it's amazing. Listen, I'm a dad too, so there are times where you just want to throw something, right? There are times where you just go like, come on, like it could be a player just being a bonehead that in that moment. Like there are emotions that make you want to go nuts. And I always say, and this is, I would say it's me too. I was talking to Dad yesterday, and he said, he's really frustrated with his kid. He didn't come to some games for a bit. I said, no, I haven't seen it in a while. He goes, yeah. He goes, you know what? But I talked to my boy, and he was talking to his boy, and he goes, he's not nearly as bothered by me he's not nearly as bothered by it as him. He said. I said, yeah. I said, and when I talked to my son, like there's a couple of times I do want to do a mental check, make sure that everything's good. And he's like, yeah, it's good. So like, it says a lot actually, because as parents, you sit there and you think like a lot of times as parent, you just want to be able to help them. If you can control some of the things like to ease their pain or to help them, like that's a parent thing. Like you would like to do that sometimes, but when in the game itself, it's not like they're playing. It's not you. So I think that's part of it. But the kids are fine. Parents shouldn't be all freaked out if we win, lose, or I mean, ice time is another thing. I could understand a little bit, like if your kid's not getting ice, I can understand getting a little bit upset and bothered and stuff. But like to not be able to control yourself for the most part is
Okay.
it's really unacceptable.
Right. Okay. So I don't want to cut you off or ruin your thread, but I want you to like talk about like personally for you, because you've been through like the whole spectrum, right? Player, parent, coach, with your kid, with yourself, high level, lower level, youth hockey, junior, whatever. If you're in a situation, let's use ice time. Let's use ice time for example. I am like fully honest. What is your mindset if like let's say year one where your kid's not getting maybe the ice
Year
time?
one junior?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like year one where you're like me, or even year two. Let's use year two as a better example. right? Because maybe you think now he should be maybe getting a little bit more because it's not year one. What would your what's your mental process like in that
Yeah, I
situation
don't
where
care what parent you are. Every parent will say, well, if you just give him a chance. Every parent says it. Like, of course he doesn't get points, or of course he's not going to get this because you're not giving him a chance. That's number one. I said it, and I would have said he outplayed people, but it wasn't
well I'd
necessarily going
say
to happen. So
so for you sorry I want you to go, but I just want to make sure I'm clear with my question. You as a human, just me knowing you got a little snap to you, right? So what do you or how do you keep yourself from getting that far where some parents just blow up about it, right? Like what do you actually do, or how do you help yourself to not, because you have the snap
yeah, I can
capacity,
snap. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So how do you not, like, what is it, what is the thought
Well, I
process?
think partially playing and being around that league helped me, but what you have to understand, like really, I talked to a couple parents about this recently too. It's like you can get really frustrated early, but you have to understand like your day is going to come if you do things the right way. Some guys get to like these junior leagues and college and stuff, and they just find out that they're just not very good hockey players. That happens, right? And they lose their shit and they can't deal with it. But you have to stick to the process. And the one thing that I always understand is there is a process. A 16-year-old kid going into the CHL, or a freshman going into college. I don't know those terms very well, but freshman's a rookie. A freshman in the NHL, a freshman in the NHL, rookie in the NHL, really shouldn't be the young 18-year-old, the 16-year-old and junior, the whatever. They shouldn't be dominating typically. There's a lot to learn at those levels. So I just knew that there was a process. That's for me. I just knew that. So there was times where I felt the process was um, well, definitely not on my terms all the time, or my son's terms, or other people's terms. Like sometimes there's a I'm gonna use a probably word incorrectly, but metro. I don't know.
What, what's the word?
I don't know.
I don't know try, I want to know what the word. Oh,
Meritocracy.
meritocracy, there you
Yeah,
go,
so
yeah,
it's
that's
just
the word.
so I said it wrong.
Yeah, you got it,
Yeah,
meritocracy,
so it's
okay.
like you've been here longer, you get to prove yourself, which is fair though, which is almost fair till you earn your way. So I think there's times where a young guy earns his way, or earns his should be earning trust, doesn't get it just because of the meritocracy. Is that right? I think there's times where you get fortunate and you're able to knock a guy off a third line or something like that, and you get a little more ice, all that stuff. But for the most part, there is a process. The process is if you're 16 years old going into the OHL, CHL, you're probably not ready to be getting regular shifts. There's a lot to learn. And then you look at it from the second year and you go, okay, now it's my time because I paid my dues. It's like, well, not necessarily. But what I could tell you that is at some point, might be year three, might be year four, might be your overage year, it might be year one. Doesn't matter. At some point, if you play the game right, you're gonna get your chance, or you're gonna everything's gonna be fine. When the day comes where you're not worried about someone taking your spot, like you're hopping over the boards all the time, then everything in the past doesn't even matter anymore. It doesn't. Like I'm saying that as a dad, you go, well, okay, the first year you might got, I don't want to say screwed because that's not what it is. First year you could have had more, but you didn't. Okay, then the second year it's like, oh well, could have had this, but he didn't. But it all worked out because he stuck to the program, and that's the main thing is you understand there is a process, trust the process, question the process. Sometimes it's okay to do that. Like it's okay, but I think the biggest thing you could do is have an intelligent conversation and maybe listen. You know, there was maybe once or twice. Well, I get along with the general manager of our team actually very well, and it's not like we go out and have dinners together, but we talk. We can have a conversation, and he lets me know exactly what he feels about my kid, and I can question it, and he gives me his view of things. And sometimes I went, you know what, I can live with that, right? I can live with that. I remember one time he goes, "He's not perfect, Andy." I go, "No, he's not," and and then I looked. I said, "Yeah, he could be better in certain ways." And he laid out a couple things that, like in his first year or two, that like I would like to see him do this a little bit more. One was maybe even the taking the extras that were there. He goes, if he probably should, and that was just a suggestion. And these are things like right. And the thing with parents is you. I hope I'm not all over the place. I think I am, but I think with parents is you got to understand is I think we talked about this before. It's easy to stand in the stands, sit in the stands, stand in the stands, and look at, oh, he put this guy out again. Oh, this guy got the captain. He shouldn't be a captain. You hear that all the time. That guy's not a captain. Well, how do you know? When did you run the dressing room? What do you see the warm ups? What do you see in the dressing room? What do you see on the ice sheet? What do you see in practice? The behavior, the talk. Like most parents don't know who the captain should be. And then when they're making maybe your son is sitting or not getting ice time, it's like okay, but maybe ask questions. Like there might be reasons why he's not playing. Maybe the coach is an asshole, but it also maybe your son is not listening. Maybe your son is not doing what he's told to do. Maybe your son, like all those different things, you can go down a lot of rabbit holes. So, anyways, my thing is like there is a process. Do things right, and typically that process will work itself out. Now, having said that, there's gonna be a lot of people that have had their kids because I've got a lot of parents that have had their kids go through the OHL or whatever high end hockey when they're pursuing hockey, and they're so bitter about it. They say it's all bullshit, it's all politics, and it's like, but it's not, but it's not, but it's not, it's not. There, and I'd be ridiculous to say like there's not ever any, right? Because you'll see sometimes it's like okay, I see a sort of connection here, that, and the other thing, but at the end of the day, if you're a good hockey player, you're gonna get where you need to get to. So now, going back to the original sitting in the stands, I really don't think people understand, and maybe it doesn't matter. But if I want to represent, if I'm wearing the BioSteel logo, I want to represent that the best that I can. Whether I'm a dad, a mom, I can't be a mom, but a dad, a player, a coach, well, I could. But I want to, I think it's important that you represent it properly. I don't care if you're a dad and you're not playing and who gives a shit because you are representing a group of things. You're representing the future of the program. I know it sounds like okay, guy, but you are. You actually are. So if you walk around and you're just a mouthpiece and you're swearing and you're just like arrogant and have something to say all the time, like it rubs people the wrong way. It can. So if your son happens to be a decent player and you're sitting beside that college coach or in that vicinity and he keeps looking like settle down, man. It's like that is not a good message. Like it's not a good message, obviously. And I think as an adult, you probably should say like, okay, maybe I'm out of control.